your life, you deserve to be more, be more, do more, have more, and give more. And now the Becoming More podcast with Dianna Kokoszka.
Welcome to Becoming More. Today, our guests are Lesley and Andy Peters, a couple that decided to do and build a real estate company together. They not only built a team of the two of them, they went on to build a great team, a team that became number one across the nation. Also, they've expanded out. They have built multiple market centers, which you may know as offices in the real estate industry. They have over 3,000 agents that they lead. Plus, they've gone out of the state of Georgia into South Carolina. They are in Atlanta, in Savannah, and now in Charlotte and other places. They just keep moving forward. Let me tell you, they are a couple to be reckoned with, and you will learn so much about becoming more as you join us today. Welcome, Lesley and Andy. Thank you for being here. So welcome, Andy and Lesley. I'm so excited for you to be with us today and help others become more.
Well, thanks for having us, Dianna. Gosh, you are one special person to us, and we're just so honored to be here with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dianna.
Well, that's the greatest part, is we both have a great deal of respect for one another. After all, great business people, boy, it takes a lot of hard work. Being an entrepreneur is not easy. And you know, it all started with you, Lesley. You were a teacher and wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I want to take you back to that time where you were being very successful, and then, well, you decided to do something different. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I had my master's in teaching after getting a business degree from Furman, and I graduated from Furman University, and immediately September 11th happened. And you can imagine what the job market was like at the time. So I became an underwriter for State Farm Insurance. And can you even see me as an underwriter? I mean, in a desk, in a cubicle all day. And I said, I can't do this. Okay, fine. I'm just going to be a teacher, right? There's plenty of teacher jobs. And so I went back and I got my master's in teaching immediately. And I loved the kids, but I realized that it didn't really matter how great of a teacher you were never going to make more money. And so thinking long term, I thought, you know what? I really want to do something where my level of work ethic can determine my results. And so I jumped into real estate, and Andy said, don't quit your day job, because we were married back then. And he said, don't quit your day job.
We still need the money.
We need your money, right? We need this income from Gwinnett County Schools. And so I kept teaching first grade and got my real estate license and worked part-time. And in 6 months, I had made in real estate what I made a full year in teaching. And so Andy said, okay.
You proved it. You proved you could do it. Now,
Quit your day job.
Yeah, now give it gas.
Well, you know what? There's always that gap in success, isn't there? Success lies in that gap. So, Andy, I want to go to you. When she came to you and said, I want to get my real estate license, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
Ooh, that feels a little risky. That feels a little risky. Now, as a sales guy, like, I appreciated the fact that you'd be selling a large asset, right? It'd be a large sale. And, you know, I mean, I realized what real estate agents could make. So I felt like, yeah, that makes sense. But she went out on a limb for sure. That was a risky move in my mind. And that was why I didn't want her to quit her day job, because I wanted to make sure that this was going to be something that wasn't just a wild hair. It was something that she really wanted to do, and she felt fulfilled by doing it. And then that first year, she came out of the gates, did so well. Then her first full year, she was Rookie of the Year in the Market Center, and people were trying to hire her and bring her onto their team and all this. And yeah, she had some other decisions to make.
I proved him wrong, Dianna. I proved him wrong.
Always.
Well, and your work ethic. I mean, that's important when you're starting anything out. How many more hours did you put in then than you do now?
Oh, I mean, I would literally be at the school every morning by 7 a.m. and I would leave at 4. I would go straight to my Keller Williams office, and I would stay there until 9 or 10 o'clock some nights.
Wow.
And It was on MARTA in Atlanta. And so it was kind of dangerous going from the car.
The rapid transit. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was the rapid transit system in Atlanta. And so it was kind of dangerous when I was walking out. And so Andy would stay on the phone with me at like 10 o'clock at night as I'm leaving the market center from working. So, I mean, I was 15-hour days most days just to make it work.
Look where you are now. Was it about 17 years, or how many years was it before Andy goes, I need to join her?
Just two.
Yeah. Yeah. She proved she could do it. And then like I said, everybody started asking her, hey, would you like to join our team? And she was also interested in maybe hiring somebody and leveraging up a little bit. And I was like, well, hold on a second. Like, you're doing pretty well. And she got to a point after a couple of years where she was making what I was making, and I was a vice president of sales, and I wasn't leading people at that point in my career. I was managing people. And as you know, there's a really big difference. And I was unhappy. I mean, I was in the airplane, 3 days a week and all over Georgia and Florida. And it was just time for a change. And I needed to find a way that I could maximize my opportunities. And so she paved the way. If it wasn't for her getting into real estate, I wouldn't have gotten here.
Okay, so now you decide to join her, yet you've been managing people. I just want to go off key a little bit here and say, what do you feel is the difference between managing and leading? Because so many people get a leadership position and go, oh, now I'm a leader, and yet then they just manage.
I think in my situation, I felt like I was working with folks that just wanted a job. They just wanted they wanted to punch a clock. They were just trying to make a little money for their family. They didn't really have a lot of vision for their life. They were retread salespeople in their third, fourth, 10th career sales job. Integrity was an issue. So, there was values that were not in alignment with the people that I was working with. And it just created a lot of tension for me. I mean, I was dealing with sexual harassment and people forging documents and just things that I'm like, should be managing this kind of stuff, right? These are some of this stuff that's just like common sense. You shouldn't have to deal with these things. But it taught me a lot. And
you weren't really involved integrally in the hiring process of these people.
No.
So they had a recruiter that was basically hiring these people. So I feel like when that happens, it truly is management. Like, it's not leadership.
Well, and both of you being great leaders and studying leadership, that had to be extremely difficult. Yet now you go from this management position and you enter into a world where Lesley has pretty much done everything. She knows every aspect of real estate. Did you want to come in and lead and take over, or did you acquiesce to her?
Well, I had to acquiesce to her. She was, she had a successful business, and I came from the corner office, the vice president role, and then I became Lesley's husband. And we had an office that was a one desk office at the top of the stairs. I still remember it. It wasn't big enough for two people, but we made it work. I would say I had like a side table that was my desk, and Lesley had the big desk, and it just drove me crazy. Like, I had no identity, and so it motivated me to get going, figure this out. And I'll never forget, I went to our first event. I got into the business in August or the end of July 2008, which seemed like a great time to get into real estate. By August, the market is really in trouble, and of course, eventually crashes in August. But we went to our first real estate convention. We went to Mega Camp with Keller Williams. And I'll never forget, people were saying, like, why are you going to that? Like, what? This is for like high level producers. Like, why are you doing that? And for me, I need to see things. I'm a big visionary, but I also need to see some things, or I need to get inspired. And so that was a really, really important part of my journey, was going very quickly and seeing the best of the best in our industry. And it made me better, right? It gave me a game plan, gave me a path. And then it was about how do we make this thing work as fast as we possibly can?
Well, you relied on models and systems that you didn't actually develop yourselves. What was it that gave you the belief in following someone else's models and systems?
I think we're both really disciplined and really learning based. So we ask a lot of questions. And I mean, that's the thing today. Like, and we see this all the time on our team. Like, people don't want to ask for help and they're not super disciplined. And a lot of real estate agents get into real estate for the freedom that real estate gives. And so they don't treat it like a real job. And I think from the get-go, we were like, we believed in our ability to do that based on our work ethic and just sheer like determination and grit.
I think also too, we were surrounded by leadership that was emerging leadership in that particular office, and they believed in us. And we borrowed that belief, right? They would come to us and say things like, you guys are going to be the first millionaire real estate agents in this office. We see it. And we're like, you talking about us? Like, seriously? And we just, I think we wandered through the wilderness for a couple of years before we actually got intentional with following those models and systems. But the minute that we made the decision to follow them, we followed them blindly. And we were amazed at how fast our career took off. We were started doubling the business the minute we started following those models.
In the worst housing market of our lifetime, right? In 2000.
Here's what I want them to hear, that worst market. It was 2008. People were getting out of the real estate industry. In fact, in the company of Keller Williams and in other real estate companies, businesses, offices were closing. About 90% of the real estate offices were losing money. And so here you are. This is when you come in and you're going, this is a terrible market, yet you didn't allow that to get into your psyche. What did you do each and every day when people were talking about doom and gloom to keep yourselves going? Because both of you have given up your jobs.
Well, you work with children, so this was probably easier than doing that. I was outside sales, right? I was doing it myself and then training other people eventually when I was vice president. But my job was to knock on 40 doors a day. And I was wearing a suit every day, and I would just wear the leather off the bottom of my shoes. I would get thrown out of buildings. I would get cussed at, and it was just another day at the office. And so that type of an approach, nothing seemed that difficult to me based upon what we had experienced. So it was just waking up every day and treating it like a job.
And building relationships. And I think that's what we were really good at, because we listened to the 33 touch model at the time that was like, touch your database 33 times, right? And we were like, oh gosh, this means we just get to go to dinner with people and go to lunch with people and have breakfast with people and get into deeper relationship. So we had this rule forever where if we got invited to a social event and we were in town,
yes,
we would never say no.
The answer is yes.
And so we just went and we tag teamed it and we worked it. And it's kind of crazy how it took off.
I want everyone to hear how intentional you are. You used that word earlier, intentionality. How intentional are we being with our businesses? And when we think about that intentionality drives your success. And you became so successful. All of a sudden, you decide to reinvent yourself. You left that behind. What happened then?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were inspired by so many of the top producers in our office. And, once we started having some success, people were asking us, how are you doing this? And I don't know that we had great answers, because what we were doing seemed quite simple. And it seemed like common sense. But over time, right, when you look back upon it, it was like it was nobody was doing that. Nobody was being intentional about their business. Everybody was just kind of taking what they could get versus making it happen. but yeah, I think that trend has continued through our life. We've always been the type people that we don't really like to follow the crowd. Like we make decisions, like we vacation in places that isn't what people typically vacation, right? We move around a lot. The things we like in houses aren't necessarily following the crowd. And I think that's what you got to, you got to decide who you want to be, and then you got to go do it.
So it's being it before doing it, which is what we all believe in, right? You've made it to where you're making more than $1 million a year selling real estate. Congratulations on that. Yet you then decide to move your entire family when things are going so good. You're so successful. What happened then? Because you did become more.
We did. Yeah. I mean, I think even before that, once the team had, grossed $1 million and netted $1 million, it was, what's next? And we made a mistake, right? We actually, in the midst of all of that success, we didn't set another goal. So once we net $1 million, we kind of started plateauing. And I think we started looking in different directions and thinking about, all right, is this really it? What do we really want to do? And Lesley was, happily interested in the sales business. I kind of got a little bored with it. And so I raised my hand and said, hey, I've enjoyed doing this myself. I kind of would like to help some other people do it. I'd like to be involved in the brokerage side of the business instead of just the sales side of the business. So I just threw my hands up, and thankfully through, the successes of our team, it put us in a position to have those conversations. And we were offered some opportunities within our company, and one of which we thought was really great. And we did all this diligence on it. We turned it down and we instantly regretted it. Like, I can't believe we said no to that. But one of our mentors at that time said, just remember, if you keep, doing what you're doing and you rock the role you're in, you're always going to have opportunities. And that was such great advice, because not 60 days later, the phone rang again, and we got another opportunity to take over not one office, but 3 offices. And they just happened to be in our hometown in Atlanta, Georgia, kind of right where I grew up. And it just couldn't have asked for a better situation. We had some good offices that just hadn't made it over that hump. And so it was a great proving ground for us to jump in and, learn that brokerage business. And and that took off, right? So then we had the sales business going on, and we had the brokerage business going on. And that's kind of what ended up leading us to a little bit of a family crossroads. And Dianna, I think I might have shared this with you, and I want you to chime in here. This is not all about me sharing the story, because this is a story of both of us. But one day we were outside on our porch, and our kids came down together. How old were they at that time?
13 and 15.
13 and 15. They came downstairs and they said, "Can we talk to you guys for a minute?" And we're both kind of looking at them like, "Is everything okay?" They said, "Yeah."
Intervention.
Yeah. Do we have too many glasses of wine tonight? Like, what's going on? And they said, "We'd like to talk to you guys about what it would look like to move outside of Atlanta." And here we were. We have a massively successful sales business. We have massively successful brokerage business. And we're just kind of like dumbfounded, right?
Wow.
We had talked about moving, but we'd never heard this from them, right? They had never voiced this to us.
Well, we said, great, we'll move up north, because we lived in the city in Atlanta. And we said, we'll move up north near one of our market centers. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, no big deal. And they said, no. Like, you don't understand. Like, we want to do something completely different. Like, we've talked about it and we want to leave Atlanta. And you're looking at these kids that are 13 and 15 who have always been really mature, but what child wants to leave their friends and their school that they have known since they were babies? And at that time, I was kind of going through this phase of, I wanted to go from the success to significance, and I really wanted to teach more. I mean, hello, masters of teaching, like, talk about 360 degrees coming back to the teaching. And I thought, I just really want to teach more. And how do I get in the classroom more? And that's truly through the market centers. And so Andy and I spent a lot of time talking about it.
Yeah. And I'd never been a free agent, right? I'd never, in our industry, I'd never been a free agent. And so I started putting some feelers out there, and lo and behold, opportunities start piling up. And then I got called to the principal's office. Andy, what are you doing? Right? Where's your focus? What are you trying to do here? And our region at the time, I went in and spoke with them, and I said, guys, I'm sorry, I messed that up. I should have come and talked to y'all first. I said, here's what's going on. Like, my family wants to move, and I'm the last person to get on board the bus. They want to move. And so we got to move. And so I'm in this process of discernment to figure out where we go. And the question was raised, like, well, how could you stay in the South, right? Where could you stay within our region? Where would you want to go? And I said, well, the only place, that I would really entertain would be Savannah. And we had already looked at some houses in Savannah online. We kind of knew what was going on. And he said, well, have you talked to the owner operator there? And I said, no, I haven't. This is kind of early in the game. He said, you need to call her. So before I got out of the parking lot, I had the owner operator, who's a dear friend and mentor of ours. I had her on the phone, and I said, tell me if we're crazy. We're considering a move to Savannah. And she said, you're not crazy. If you move here, you probably will never move away. But while I have you on the phone, what are your business plans? And I chuckled, and I was like, well, I don't have any. It would be a lot cooler if I did, though. And after a couple of conversations, we worked that out. And then, of course, I went back to the region. And I was like, good news, we're moving to Savannah. And they're like, wait, what? You're doing what? And I was like, well, y'all told me to do this. So it was just, it was the right thing. It was the right timing. And it stretched us because we were at a point where we wanted to really see how we could scale into a different market, because some of the successful things we were doing in Atlanta, we wanted to try it in new places. We really had that desire to have more, right? Have a bigger, more successful organization.
Well, Dianna, I think it's so much, though, when you focus on your values and what truly matters, then everything else just falls into place. And I feel like for me, for so long, I could not give up this real estate team because I felt like it was my baby, right? And even if I wasn't happy, I was still going to show up and run that baby every single day because I thought that was being sacrificial, right? Like, I started it, I've got to finish it, right? Like, I've got to stay in it. And when the kids came to me, it really changed things because it opened my eyes to see, like, I want them to see us do things that follow our passion.
And that are hard.
And that are hard, right? And so it was really getting clear on our value of, like, family first. Like, we will always have opportunities. And that's what we found. We moved our kids across the state of Georgia. They absolutely are in the best school. They love it so much. And when you focus on your family, everything else just seems to fall into place.
What's interesting about all of that is, first, you do have your values in place, your family first over your business. Congratulations on that. Yet I want to know, have you bought them something special because of them getting you to move and where you've ended up?
Well, we'll start with a boat. They have a boat now.
Oh, come on. I had to add that in. And I want to get in, though, because you brought up some very good points. One is going from success to significance. Two, you grow into opportunity. You don't go into opportunity. And you didn't just leave something. You went to something else. So could you address those three items and how someone could make the decision, or what led you to go from success to significance, from Atlanta to Savannah? Because you talked about your heart. Let's go into that, the emotions.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we learned through that was that you have to be open to change, and you even though sometimes it might feel a little uncomfortable or a lot uncomfortable, when you're open to that and open to what it can do for you, your world can be so much better. It's not a takeaway, it's all an add. And I think we've learned through just working through difficult markets, growing organizations, even dealing with difficult people, that everything is worth it, even when it doesn't seem like it is, because everything's teaching you something. So yeah, having a high level of emotional intelligence and understanding that, hey, sometimes it's just going to stink, and you just got to walk in the stink. And on the other side of that is something beautiful.
Well, it reminds me of the book, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, right? Like we learn so much more when we're in the midst of really hard times than we do when things are really easy. And for us, like one thing I've seen is like moving our kids across the state, like they got to experience a little bit of hard, right? Like they got to meet new friends and see the challenges in that, go to a new school, learn new things. So I think it's taught all of us so much. Like it's really awesome, but we're people of faith. And I just felt God honestly moving in every part of this, Dianna. Like it was truly, I mean, what kids want to move, right? Like what kids want to move across the state at 13 and 15 years old?
Well, I moved when I was 13. My parents moved me from Macon, Georgia to Atlanta, Georgia, and I thought my life was coming to an end. Like this was what somebody was doing to me, not for me. And as a result of that, I held a grudge against my parents for years. And that was what got me, because like I said, I was the last person to get on board with this idea. And I just thought back to those times whenever I didn't want to, right? I was told this is what we were doing. And I felt like, gosh, if I fast forward and we don't do this when they're telling us to move, how are we going to regret that decision?
And today they thank us all the time.
You bring something up that's very good, and I don't want people to miss this here, is you allowed your past to teach you something that you brought forward to the future. You didn't dwell in the past of being a victim. You brought it forward and learned from it. And I know that you all are learning based. You're at almost every event I can think of. You're constantly looking at what can we do next to learn from great people. So I'm going to ask you, how important is it for people to have a mentor, a coach, someone that guides and helps direct them in their life? And how did you choose your mentors and coaches?
That's a great story.
Yeah. So we were pretty entrepreneurial. I said we started following some models of the real estate industry, and we found success, and yet it seemed a little more entrepreneurial. And obviously, the higher you go, the more purposeful you have to be. And I remember getting stuck, like, in between that grossing $1 million, netting $1 million. And I was trying to figure out what was next. And, I liked what we were doing, but I didn't necessarily love what we were doing. And I remember going to a lunch with one of our mentors, Bob Kalinsky. And I said, Bob, I don't know. Like, I can't see. I don't have the gift of experience that you have. How do I break free? Like, how do I get clarity around what's next? And he said, do you know who you want to be? And I'd never really thought about that. That was the first time that I slowed down. And he said, well, is there anybody that resembles what it is that you want to become, right? Anybody that would be a mentor? And I was like, well, obviously you. I mean, I came to you for this conversation. And he's like, yeah, no, not me, like somebody else. And I said, well, there's this guy, Gene Rivers, right, that I really, really look up to and admire. And Lesley and I have always gone to a lot of training and things that Gene has done. And we like the fact that they had a sales business and they had brokerages, and They had a great family life and their kids went to the best schools in the country and all these things. And he's like, have you called him? And I was like, no, I feel like he's untouchable, or he's this person that I don't know that I can have this conversation, much less a relationship with. And he's like, well, you want me to connect you? You want to jump on a phone call with him? But that one conversation led us into, we had built a business around marketing to our database that generated business. And it was the first time that I understood that if you want mentors, you kind of have to market yourself to your mentors. And you have to think about, first you have to identify who they are, and then you've got to put yourself in position with them and earn the right to be in relationship with them. It's not just a given, right? Just like I'm blessed to be in a relationship with you, and I don't feel like it's ever been given. We've earned that through putting ourselves in position. And coming to you and asking you questions and learning from you and all of that. So to me, I believe the main point of that is marketing to your mentors and earning that right to be in relationship with them.
And getting to
And before you talk, Lesley, I just want to say something here, because you mentioned something. You said asking questions. See, that's one of the things that I know about both of you is when you're around people, like when you were around Tony and I, we came to speak to your group in January, you had questions. And I went, Tony, I love these people. They are so inquisitive. They're curious. They don't believe they know everything, like I don't know everything. And when I get with my mentors, I ask them questions. So many people want to be mentored by other people, and they just want people to tell them and come and feed them like, oh, my mouth is open, give it to me, give it to me. Yet you come prepared, intentional, and on purpose. So Lesley, tell us about that, because you were going to talk to us about mentors as well.
Yeah, I think Andy and I grew up in really successful homes. Our dads were both CEOs, successful people, but we never saw them have mentors and coaches in their lives. So for us, we relied on our leadership in our office for so long for that relationship, because that's just what we thought you did. Like, we didn't even know that really existed. And I think a huge aha for us along the way was people stabbing us in the front and saying, okay, I can't help you anymore. Like, you've outgrown me, and now is the time that you've got to start paying someone to hold you accountable and for coaching and consulting. And at that point, we were like, well, okay, I wish you'd have told us that 5 years ago, right? Because we do listen, but we just didn't know, right? And now I look at our kids and I think about, gosh, they've grown up in a completely different environment where they see us have coaches and consultants in our lives. And I'm sure for them, they'll hire one immediately.
Well, sure. And I mean, when we find out the things that they want to do, whether that's soccer, whether that's being better at school or whatever it is that they want to do, the first thing we say, who's the best person to learn from for that? How do we go get into a relationship with those people and realize that we might have to pay them? And that's a great investment, right? That's not buying stuff. That's buying experience. That's buying counsel. Like, that is a tremendous investment of your money.
You're both investors, yet I do believe one of the best investments we make is in ourselves and learning from great people. Yet I'm going to switch gears for just a minute, and let's go in this last portion about investing. Because not only investing in yourself, more importantly, you've decided to take some of your money and actually allow it to help you grow more money through those investments. What do you use to make decisions on investing?
Yeah.
Well, I think you got to get real clear on your mission. Years ago, I went through an exercise and I didn't know what the mission was. So personally, I adopted a mission of creating massive opportunities for others through real estate. And that then helped me get clarity around okay, is this an opportunity? Or is this a massive opportunity? Is this around real estate? Or is this outside of real estate? We're kind of unabashed that we're all in on real estate. Whether that's the core business was sales, or now the core business is more brokerage, but there's all the ancillaries and things that, the ladders that lean up against the core business. When we focus on the core business, though, all the other stuff gets bigger. So we've got to be really clear on, all right, I can't give all of my attention to these ancillary type opportunities. But I know that focus on the core business is going to help me develop more and make those others more successful. And that's typically the lens that we use when we're making decisions on investments. And I think now, too, we're at a point to where we think about the power of partnership, right? The power of partnership has helped us together as a married couple achieve great things. We've built a great real estate business that was partnerships around being in business with successful people. Everything that we do nowadays, I don't think we own 100% of anything. So we share in the risk, we share in the upside, but more importantly, we've got people that we love. They're in the foxhole with us, and that's what makes it fun.
You're so good with relationships and so good in helping others. You are living your mission. I've got to tell you, though, I was going to close with that. I can't. I just have to know, how did two people, husband and wife, get along well enough in a business? What did you do to actually make certain you didn't bump and get in each other's way?
Well, I think we've always prioritized our relationship first. So we've always been committed to date nights and vacations without the children, and just really prioritize our relationship. And I think so often people put their children first, and then that's when you lose sight of the person that you're going to live your entire life with. And so we've really done well, I think, at prioritizing ourselves for our relationship first.
But let's not get it twisted. Like a hot date night for us might be, hey, what kind of marketing fits in an envelope for no more postage than one stamp, right?
I mean, it doesn't stop.
Or, like all of a sudden a phone is ringing and it's a number you don't recognize. And is that a robo dialer, or is that a buyer or seller that's interested in doing business with you? And there's many nights where Lesley would see that and she'd be like, I bet you can't convert that. And I mean, we're in the middle of having a nice
sushi dinner.
But I can't be challenged like that, right, Dianna? So I've got to be on my P's and Q's with my dialogues, right, and my conversations. So we have a lot of fun with it. I would say that our business and personal life, we refer to it as beautifully intertwined. I don't know where you shut one off and you should turn one on. I don't know that can happen.
Actually, people are doing it. In fact, I had breakfast lately with someone that said, my husband and I, we have an agreement. When we drive in and we put the garage door down, we don't talk about real estate. We don't talk about work. And I kind of laughed and I was like, all of our conversations pretty much revolve around our investments and real estate and work, because we think it's so much fun. And honestly, I think when we did an exercise early on separately with one of our leaders, she said, where do you want to be in 10 years? And she brought me in and she took me through the exercise and wrote it all down. I was in there for an hour and a half. And then she brought Andy in and she took him through the exercise. And then she came in our office and she got us and she said, you guys, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. She said, I could basically take your 10-year plan and lay it on top of each other, and they are identical. She said, how did that happen? And I said, and you said it too. I mean, we talk about what we want and our goals all the time. And so for us, like, if I don't want something that Andy wants, it's still going to be a priority for me because he wants it, and vice versa. And so I think that's been really key, is we've been on the same page since day one.
I've seen and watched both of you honor and respect each other. I think that's a very key point to many people getting along in business. When I teased Andy about, did you want to come in and just take over? He said, no, because you were the Swiss Army knife doing everything. That is a very smart man that you married, because he already knew what you were doing, and yet he honored and respected that. And I'm like you, I don't know how people turn it off. Tony and I, both being coaches, we talk about folks and how we can help them and what's going on in their business. And hey, have you thought about this? Have you told them about that? There's a book out that you could recommend. I mean, it's just part of your life when you desire to add value to other people. So I know our time is coming to a close. What parting words do you have for everybody that's listening on becoming more?
Well, I believe you got to have clarity around who you are, what you want. And I think you have to make some sacrifices along the way. Like Lesley said earlier, we made a lot of sacrifices at the expense of our kids in the early days. And in the end, I think we've made some sacrifices in the expense of ourselves for our kids. So just never arrive. My dad always told me, he said, first of all, do what you say you're going to do. And the second thing is pay the upfront price for everything. It will be worth it, right? If you're going to put the time and effort into it, don't get so caught up and I got to make all my money right now, or it's not worth doing it. Find something that you're really passionate about, pay that upfront price, because in the end, you'll be glad you did.
And I was going to say, just follow your heart. I mean, Dianna, values, you and I have had the values conversation a lot recently. And I think for so long, I didn't know what my true values were, because I didn't ever slow down to actually speed up. And I think it's so true. You get on this hamster wheel of business, and I'm an achiever personality. So I'm always driven by, okay, well, what's the next thing I need to achieve? And what's the next thing? And early on in my career, I think some of it was done just out of ego, right? Like, oh, I can do that. I can do that. And then you get to a phase in your career where sometimes you burn out. And I think you burn out because you don't focus on what really matters in your heart and what your core values are. And so the earlier you can get clear on core values and in choosing partnerships, right? I mean, I tell our kids all the time, like, your spouse is the most important decision you will ever make, right? I mean, that is your number one partner, but your business partners too, the people you invest with, like knowing values of people you surround yourself with. Like, you got to slow down to speed up and know yours first.
I love what you've shared with us today. In each and every portion of this, you've helped people become more, and they can learn through your experiences. So thank you for being with me today. I was so excited about this podcast, and I'm even more excited for people to listen and to watch it on YouTube. So subscribe with us. And I want people to know, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, there's a couple ways. You can use the old Facebook, right? We're the Peters Company is our business. You can follow me at Andy Peters or her at Lesley Peters. Instagram.
We're still old school, Dianna. We're so email based. I mean, I think we're getting old. So email's always awesome. Lesley at thepeterscompany.com, Andy at thepeterscompany.com. I mean, so weird, right?
Yeah.
Well, with you being my kid's age, when you say you're getting old, all of a sudden I'm going, oh, what does that make me? Anyway, it's so fun to be with you guys. And for all of you that have listened to this, make certain that you listen to the individual podcasts of these two people, where we delve in more to pull more out of each one of them as to what they did to be successful and become more. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dianna.
Thank you, Dianna.
In your life, you deserve to be more, do more, have more, and give more. And now the Becoming More podcast with Dianna Kokoszka.